And now I would like to introduce today's special guest. I suspect that if I were to ask for a show of hands, I'd see an ocean of them when I ask the question, how many people here have used a cell phone while driving a car? I also suspect that almost everybody who admitted to that would agree that it's really not the safest thing to do. We all know this, but like so many things, we don't really know it. Our guest today really knows it. He really knows that talking on a cell phone while driving, or reading an email on the BlackBerry, or eating a sandwich, he knows these are very dangerous things to do. In fact, he can prove it. Stan Griffin is President and CEO of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. It is his job to study and understand how the things we do while driving affect the safety with which we drive. And while the rest of us just love all the new and wonderful things we can now do in the car, from watching onboard movies to studying the GPS, not to mentioning listening to iPods, I bet Mr. Griffin just shakes his head. We live in a distracting world that gets more distracting every day. We live in a society that encourages us to do as many things at once as possible and provides us with any number of gadgets and gizmos to help us do them. It falls to people like Stan Griffin to sound a lonely alarm about how dangerous it is to use those gadgets and gizmos while driving. Mr. Griffin was born in Leamington, Ontario. He received his Bachelor of Arts from the University of Toronto and a Master of Arts in Social Science from the University of Chicago. Over the past 30 years, Mr. Griffin has held a number of senior roles at IBC, including Executive Vice President of Regional Operations, overseeing IBC's regional offices across the country. While Vice President for the Ontario region, Stan spearheaded negotiations that led to substantial improvements to the province's auto insurance system. There are very few people in Canada who know more about safety in general and road safety in particular. I suggest we all listen very carefully and strongly suggest we wait to call our friends to tell them about the speech until after we finish driving back to the office. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our podium today the President and CEO of the Insurance Bureau of Canada, Stan Griffin.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for that kind introduction and for your warm reception. A couple of weeks ago, in the post-seasonal time of year that we've just gone through, I was going through the various greeting cards that we all receive this time of year, and I came across one that I found very striking, and it was from the University of Chicago. And the cover of the card was one of the many gargoyles that grace the old buildings and the old quadrangle at the university. And just to enhance the coldness of this stone gargoyle, there was a light dusting of snow on it. When you open it up, the greeting inside said, "From the bastion of cold, hard facts come the warmest of holiday wishes." Well, and in that same warm spirit, I'm here today to give you the cold, hard facts about one of the most serious road safety issues of our time, and that is driver distraction. And if you think I may be overstating its importance, let me tell you that it's not just me, it's not just the insurance industry sounding the alarm on this problem. Now, for many of us concerned about road safety, impaired driving is always a top-of-mind issue. The natural tendency when we think of impairment is to think of alcohol and drugs. But the results of a study conducted recently at the University of Utah on drivers and cell phone use has, I think, forever changed our thinking on many of our assumptions. Before I tell you what that study found, I want to make it clear that when I talk about driver distraction, I mean more than just cell phones. I mean iPods and MP3 players and cell phones and adjusting the radio and eating while driving, and everything you do behind the wheel that is not driving. This particular study, however, was looking at cell phone use, and it found that a driver on a cell phone was, in many cases, as impaired as a drunk driver. In some cases, more so. Dr. David Strayer, who presented his findings last year at the first International Conference on Distracted Driving here in Toronto, said that drivers who use cell phones on the road, and I quote from his study, fail to see up to half of the information in the driving environment. Fail to see half of the information in the driving environment. I think this statement could probably apply to a number of other distractions as well. Another study released in April last year by the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration showed us the scope of the problem when it found that distraction was a contributing factor in an estimated 8 out of every 10 crashes. This adds up to more than 4 million crashes a year in North America. So, not only is distracted driving as dangerous as driving drunk, it's much more common. Now, given the mounting evidence, Canada's home car and business insurers are taking the issue of driver distraction very seriously. What's more, statistically speaking, 9 out of 10 people in this room agree. This, according to a recent poll of Canadians conducted by Polera and funded by the Insurance Bureau of Canada. 89% of the respondents to that poll said that they were either very concerned or somewhat concerned about driver distraction. These findings are encouraging because recognition of the problem is the first part of finding any solution. The amazing finding from the poll was that 60% of drivers would not be willing to give up the cell phone while driving. This, even after being told that they are 4 times more likely to be involved in a collision. In other words, driver distraction is a problem, but it's the other guy's problem. Well, I'm sure that each of you have a story or two about a distracted driver, and I want to tell you about something that happened to one of my staff. It was an early morning commute for Nancy. She was on the on-ramp to the Don Valley Parkway, waiting for the traffic ahead of her to clear and merge into the ongoing traffic. When, to her horror, she looked in her rearview mirror, saw a young woman in the car behind her barreling down at high speed behind her, with her rearview mirror adjusted in such a way that she could adjust her hair and put on her makeup. Well, the result was a high collision rear end that resulted in 5 vehicles being jammed into each other. Nancy was off for 10 weeks recovering from her injuries, and there was extensive damage. Her car was totaled, and the 4 other cars were extensively damaged. From my own bank of stories, I used to quite regularly commute down University Avenue to our office when it was on University. There was a fellow who had the same commute schedule as I did, and I would quite regularly see him maneuvering around Queen's Park Crescent with his rearview mirror adjusted in such a way that he could drive with his left hand while he got in his morning shave with his electric shaver in his right hand. Now, my story is not quite so dramatic because I wasn't around to see the unhappy ending of this particular fellow's activities. But the point is that we all have these stories. And that's an important part of the solution. We know there is a problem. We've seen it. Part 2 of the solution, a much more daunting task to be sure, is coming to the realization that sometimes the maniac that we describe in those stories is us. The ability to multitask is admired in today's society. That might be fine at the office, but not while driving. Driving is a full-time job. Every other task you try to carry out while behind the wheel is taking your attention away from where it should be on the road. This is a fact. Now, you might say that calling your husband on the hands-free to ask him to pick up some milk on the way home is nowhere as distracting as checking your email. And you might be right. But both common sense and research tell us that our brains can only do so much at one time. If you do more of one thing, you have less capacity for something else. We've all heard of walking and chewing gum at the same time. Well, that may not be overly taxing on your brain's capacity, but try finding your exit off an unknown expressway while talking on a cell phone and chomping down on a burger. So what's the insurance industry doing about driver distraction? Where do we see the solution to an issue that everyone seems to view as someone else's problem? There are many people out there, some in our industry, some in government, who would like to ban cell phone use completely while driving. A good idea, perhaps, but one that would be difficult to enforce and one that does not really reflect the complexity of this issue. For one thing, we live in an age where talking on a cell phone is just one of the many tasks that's vying for our attention while we're behind the wheel. You know, some distractions are ageless. Dealing with children in the back seat is a good example. Picking up a toy from the floor, passing the kids a snack, or breaking up a fight in the back seat are many things that our parents did while driving. This common distraction often requires the driver to take their eyes off the road physically and turn away for only a second. What could happen in a second? Well, physics tells us that if you're traveling at 100 kilometers an hour, in that 1 second, you will travel 28 meters of road. A lot can happen. Tragedy can happen. Tuning the radio is another task that's been taking our attention away from the road for at least as long as I've been driving. But for a long time, those two were really about it. Today, we have an explosion of new distractions, including iPods, GPS, DVD players, laptops, MP3 players. And because life has become so hectic, and many of us spend several hours a day commuting, we try to do more and more while in transit. It seems that meals are also too time-consuming to fit into our busy schedules, so we eat while we drive. And in fact, if you look on the internet, you will find that you can even find a handy-dandy aluminum dinner tray that hooks over your steering wheel. Because while you're endangering your life and others, I suppose it's important to make sure you don't get any mustard on your pants. So banning cell phones really only addresses one of a dozen or more things that could potentially distract a driver. With technology advancing the way it currently is, it seems there's a new in-car gadget coming out every day. We can't be sure what tomorrow's big distraction will be, much less contemplate a law against it. For many years, our industry has been a leading advocate of graduated driver licensing. IBC, along with a number of provincial governments, has been exploring the idea of adding a cell phone restriction to existing graduated licensing systems. We took the lead in 2005 by funding a groundbreaking study at the University of Calgary. The object of the study was to determine what effect, if any, cell phone use had on new drivers and how, if at all, that differed from the experience of experienced drivers. Well, the results were released earlier this month, and you'll never guess what they showed. Our preconceived notions were wrong. It happens. That's why we do research, after all. The study, which was the first of its kind to look at novice drivers as a group and the first to study driver distraction in real-life driving conditions, told us that driving experience does not really help us handle distractions. Novice or new drivers fared more or less the way we would have expected. Terribly. While talking on the phone or dialing a number, they got tunnel vision. They looked straight ahead instead of scanning the environment as we should be doing when we're driving. Their reaction time to hazards was notably worse, and they also tended to wander out of their lane. The surprise from the research was with experienced drivers, who we expected to compensate quite well for this distraction. But they didn't. Their visual scanning, reaction times, and vehicle control also suffered, showing that they were just as susceptible to distraction as a group. So, it's not just a problem for new drivers, and cell phones are really only the tip of the iceberg. What to do? What can we do? What can we do about an issue that is escalating as our lives get busier, that is ever evolving and changing with technology, that cannot be tied to a particular demographic group, that cannot be blamed on any one piece of technology or targeted effectively by lawmakers? What to do about a problem that's the other guy's problem? Well, the answer is make it everyone's problem through education. 89% of Canadians are concerned about distracted drivers. And that's why Canada's home car and business insurers are launching a $4 million multifaceted campaign that asks Canadians, what are you doing behind the wheel? The campaign began with a news conference where we unveiled our little marvel of modern technology that simulates driver distractions you might find in your car. I think it's coming up on your monitors as I speak. This specially designed distraction simulator is called the dumb car. And dumb stands for not the guy driving it, but the vehicle itself, which stands for Distractions Undermining Motorist Behavior, DUMB. Because if you're trying to drive with this many distractions, you're certainly not driving smart. Now, I invite you to give the dumb car a try while you're here. It's in the lobby. I know many of you were lining up to get in it before the luncheon started. And I sincerely hope it no way resembles what you're going to be driving home later this afternoon. Next week, you'll see the campaign really take off with a far-reaching advertising blitz that's intended to make the connection for Canadians between what they see on the road and what they do on the road. I'd like to preview for you just a few of our radio and television messages to give you a glimpse of what the campaign is all about.
It's me, your car radio. We shared a lot of miles, had our favorite songs, so forgive me for asking. What's with the cell phone? Hang up, will ya? Or pull over. You can't be talking about serious stuff while driving. Please keep your mind on the road.
Drivers using a cell phone are 4 times more likely to crash, and we can prove it online. Go to clickonthis.ca and take the virtual road test.
Hang up already. You gotta change.
That's clickonthis.ca, a message from Canada's home, car, and business insurers.
Hey, it's me, your car radio. We've shared good times, haven't we? The trips, the drive-ins, so level with me. Is that a hot coffee you're drinking? Are you crazy? You need 2 hands on the wheel. And what if that thing spills? It'll be all over for us.
A simple distraction like handling a hot coffee can impair your driving, and we can prove it online. Go to clickonthis.ca and take the virtual road test.
This isn't a diner, you know. You gotta change.
That's clickonthis.ca, a message from Canada's home, car, and business insurers.
Well, versions of these ads are also running in print publications and on the website referred to in those advertisements, clickonthis.ca. This new website allows visitors to try an online driver's distraction simulation, take a driver distraction quiz, and get other valuable information. An exciting element of the campaign is a partnership that IBC has developed with Chum TV, which owns City TV, CP24, and A Channel in Ottawa, Windsor, and London. These stations are running a contest asking people to go to the closest speaker's corner to submit their weirdest, funniest, or scariest driver distraction story. People can also submit their stories to clickonthis.ca. All entries will be eligible to win a home entertainment center, and the best submissions will be made available on the website. City TV will also be running a special half-hour episode on Speaker's Corner at the end of February dedicated exclusively to driver distraction. That is what the insurance industry is doing about driver distraction. We're educating Canadians to the dangers of treating their vehicles like rolling offices or restaurants, reminding them that driving is a full-time job and that the consequences of treating it otherwise could be deadly. One more thing we're doing. Starting today with my appearance here at the Canadian Club, IBC staff will be going out to speak about driver distractions to schools, colleges, service clubs, and other groups across Ontario and in other parts of the country, raising awareness of this issue at the grassroots level. We're halfway there. We know it's a problem. Canada's home, car, and business insurers want us to recognize that it's our problem. Will our program work? I think it will. Canadians have a strong social conscience, and they'll respond, as they have in the past on other issues. Our industry played a leadership role in the campaign to change public behavior toward drinking and driving and wearing seat belts. Behavior can be positively influenced by public education. Another example, reduce, reuse, recycle. Through public education, this has become something of a mantra for the current generation. How about participaction? I'm sure there are a few of you in the audience that remember that. Over 30 years, this education program got Canadians off the couch and got them moving, dramatically improving our fitness level as a nation. And the thing to remember is Canadians didn't get in shape because they had to do so by law. They learned and they changed their ways. Likewise, we're confident that education on driver distraction can change the way we drive because Canadians know the truth when they see it, and tend to do the right thing when they know what the right thing is. So in that spirit, I challenge each of you to think as you drive home this afternoon or later this evening, what am I doing behind the wheel? If the answer is anything but driving, think about some of the stories you've heard here today. Is that distracted driver you? Are you driving D-U-M-B, dumb? If so, I would simply ask you to stop. Remember, distraction is a form of impairment. You wouldn't drive drunk. So why would you drive distracted? Just drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stan. And now some questions from the audience. What about the car companies? Are they on board to help change behaviors?
As I mentioned, this campaign was really just launched last week with our media announcements and my speech here today. We are in discussions with the car manufacturers on a number of features related to anti-theft devices, safety devices. We have not, to this point, had direct discussions with them on this particular campaign.
Thank you. Shouldn't there be some punishments? For example, we punish people for no seat belts.
Well, the theme of our campaign, as I outlined just now, is really the hope that educating Canadians to the effects of what can happen while driving distracted will have the impact of changing that behavior. We really think that education and a carrot rather than a stick will hopefully prove to have some impact.
Do we have statistics on accidents caused by cell phones while driving? What are they?
No. And that's one of the pieces of research or statistics that is lacking. The police do, and the police are the source of accident and collision statistics, and they do collect information on the road conditions, whether or not there was impairment involved, estimates of speed, etc. But they do not record whether or not a cell phone was in use and whether there was a distraction. And, you know, I've thought about this, and the police are not usually at the scene of a collision when it happens. And I'm not sure how many people in this room, if they were involved in a cell phone in a collision when the police arrived, said, "Oh, yes, and officer, you should know I was talking on the cell phone when I rear-ended that car in front of me." So it's kind of a tough one to get a handle on.
Okay, thank you. What, if anything, are the gizmo manufacturers like Apple doing about this issue?
I'm not sure what Apple's doing. I guess that should be addressed to Steve Jobs. I'm not sure what the answer is to that. You know, it's not the technology itself that's the problem. It's the driver, and it's the use of the technology. And, you know, we've seen recently at the Detroit Auto Show introduction of all kinds of new vehicles with all kinds of things added into them. And the manufacturers, you know, are responding to consumer desire. And I think there is a value to having a means of communication with you when you're traveling. I do take my BlackBerry, which is also a phone, when I'm driving. I do not have it on when I'm driving. But it is a value in the event that I am in an emergency or I see someone else who needs help. So it's not the gadgets themselves that are the problem. It's trying to deal with them all at the same time.
It's the dumb people. What is the difference between talking on a cell phone and talking to a fellow passenger in the car?
Both are distracting. I'm not sure that there is a great difference. I would say any conversation is distracting. There may be a heightened distraction with the use of a cell phone in that you don't have the body language and the person sitting beside you who knows what environment you're going through and can say, okay, there's a car coming, I should shut up now. The person on the cell phone has no idea what environment you're operating in. So I would suspect, but I don't have any research to support this, that the cell phone would be a higher distraction.
Well, I hope you're not getting tired. There's some great questions here. Why do some radio talk shows take call-in people who are driving and put them on the air?
That's a great question. Well, maybe as a result of our campaign, maybe they'll change that behavior. Again, that's a question I think that should rightly be posed to the radio stations.
Is the $4 million campaign, is all the funds being spent on media, or is any of the money being used to educate the public?
There are a combination of activities that I touched on in my presentation. A significant part of it, obviously, is going to the development and broadcast of the radio and television commercials, the outreach. There was a portion of it allocated, obviously, to the research that provided us all the background for the campaign. The dumb cars, of which we have two. One will be circulating in Ontario. One is currently circulating in Atlantic Canada. Our Speakers Bureau and support to our Speakers Bureau. So it is a pretty multifaceted campaign.
And the last question, unless there's someone running up with the last one. Education has been part of the solution in eliminating cigarettes from our lives. But education hasn't been enough. People still smoke. What else are you planning?
We're taking it one step at a time, and we've launched our public education campaign, and as I mentioned to you, Noella, at lunch, I'd be happy to come back a year from now to see and report on the impact that the campaign has had. But at this point, we're launching our education campaign, hoping that, as I mentioned in my remarks, that Canadians will respond. I think everyone in this room and everyone in the reception ahead of time were telling their own stories of driver distraction. Now we have to get beyond telling the stories and doing something about it. And I'm confident that that Canadians are just at the point of saying this is something we have to address, and let's get smart about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. You're a great sport. I would now like to call on Alison Dalglish-Potter, our Director of the Canadian Club, to thank Stan. Thank you, Alison.
I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to thank Stan Griffin for his, well, shall we say, sobering remarks here today. We are a strange society. There was a time when very few people bothered with seat belts, and a great many of us smoked cigarettes while driving. I mean, I can even remember being in the back seat of a station wagon during carpools with my brothers, rolling around like logs when we turned corners. I mean, we thought that was fun, but clearly it wasn't smart. Nowadays, almost everybody wears seat belts, front seat and back, and it's rare for a smoker to light up in the car, even alone, not to mention with other people in the vehicle. Why have we changed these habits? Because we know it's safer, just like bicycle helmets are when we go for a ride, and hockey helmets are for shinny games at the rink. And yet, as safety conscious as we've become, we talk on the phone, check our Blackberries, and eat our lunch while driving, knowing full well that if something goes wrong, we could die, or worse, we could be the cause of an innocent person's death. We seem to live our life in contradictions. I'm betting, though, that many of us here today might now think twice before we next make a call or pick up the phone, the hairbrush, the dog, razor, while driving. I'm betting, in fact, that as long as there are people like Stan Griffin to keep hammering home the point that driving distractions can kill, that more and more people will start playing it a little smarter, just as they did with seatbelts. It was an illuminating speech on a very important topic, and Mr. Griffin has our sincere thanks for reminding us that a life led by contradictions is a life shortened by them. Thanks, Stan.
Thank you, Alison. This wraps up today's program, which was broadcast live on Rogers Television and will be rebroadcast in the days to come. You can also see the webcast of the speech by visiting canadianclub.org. Thank you all for coming today. This meeting is now adjourned.